turn now to Republican Congressman from Louisiana, Congressman Mike Johnson. Good to see you, and thank you so much for taking the time. I'll start with your service on the Judiciary Committee. This letter from Representative Grassley essentially alleging widespread effort to downplay negative information on the president's son. Do you think any action will come from this letter, again, written to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland?
I do. There is serious accountability that needs to be pursued here. We'll be investigating that as soon as we are returned to the majority after the November election. I serve, as you know, on the House Judiciary Committee and am the ranking member of the Constitution Subcommittee. Jim Jordan is our ranking member of the larger committee. We have been working feverishly behind the scenes. We have whistleblowers from the FBI as well. And we're collecting all that data, putting it together. Look, there's no question, Sean, that the DOJ has been politicized in the Biden administration. Some of us use the term weaponized. It is doing partisan political bidding of the Democrat Party, and that is a serious problem because it undermines the people's faith in that institution, our whole system of justice.
I'm just curious to know this, and I know it's jumping ahead, but the January 6th committee holding their hearings, I believe they've had 7 or 8 at this point. But they were put together by Nancy Pelosi, not really allowing the minority leader to place their party's representatives on this panel the way they so deem fit. If the roles reverse, Republicans take the House, a committee develops to investigate the president's son, let's say that. Will that be the same case? Will the majority allow the minority to choose their own committee members? Have you thought about that?
Our team is the rule of law team. The Republican Party believes in our institution, the way it's supposed to function. We have no interest whatsoever in partisan retribution and politicizing these functions of Congress. That is what has caused some of these abuses and the problems that we're facing right now. That said, the oversight responsibility of Congress is critically important, and we're going to do it in accordance with the rules and the procedures that exist. That's what makes it legitimate. We're going to follow the truth where it leads, and you'll see that play out beginning in early January. There's a long list of things that we have to go after and ensure oversight on, and each of our committees will be involved in that in earnest.
I'll move on to this topic, one that affects just about every American, a potential recession. And the definition of recession seems to be in flux, as does a male and a female these days. It appears the White House is trying to redefine the term recession, which would go against the past 75 years or so of what many have come to understood a recession as. Let me play this for you from the White House press secretary, and then I'll get your response.
We're not going to be in a recession, in my view. The employment rate is still one of the lowest we've had in history. It's in the 3.6 area. We still find ourselves with people investing.
I'm not going to define it from here. I'm just going to leave it to the NBER, as we have stated, of how they define recession.
But there's somewhat of a contradiction if you pull this up. Again, this from the White House website here. It says, while some maintain that 2 consecutive quarters of falling real GDP constitute a recession, that is neither the official definition nor the way economists evaluate the state of the business cycle, end quote. But when you Google the definition of a recession, it's 2 consecutive declines in GDP. America could be confused by this. Your thoughts?
Look, I think America has tuned out of the White House and their spin. That's the problem with this administration. They are so concerned about spin, and they never address the real problems. Whether you're talking about inflation, immigration, their general incompetence, Afghanistan, energy policy, now the economy, playing with the language is not going to solve the crisis that every American feels. The fact is the fact. This economy is contracting as a direct result of the Biden administration's crazy policies. And every American feels it. All hardworking families are struggling right now, and it doesn't matter what they say at the podium of the White House. It doesn't change that reality.
I want to get to your bill if I can here. I know that you put this one forward. You've recently introduced the Unborn Child Support Act, if I can get your comment on that. Tell the viewers about that.
Yeah, it's a bicameral piece of legislation. I'm grateful to Senator Kramer from North Dakota, who introduced it in the Senate as we introduced it in the House. We have a long list of co-sponsors. This is a very simple, common sense piece of legislation that says that mothers, life begins at conception. And after the Dobbs ruling, the federal law needs to be updated to recognize the reality of this. the biological medical reality of this, and the important point that fathers have responsibility as well. So the Unborn Child Support Act does exactly what the title of the bill implies. It allows a mother to receive child support payments for the child before that child is born, all the way back to the date of conception as determined by a physician. So completely within her discretion. If the paternity test is her call, whether she goes to a court to get child support payments is her call, but she ought to have that ability, and I think the federal law reflects that. It's been very well received since we rolled it out. I
can imagine. I want to focus on, really quickly, and I'll let you go. Vice President Mike Pence recently touched on the topic of somewhat of your bill in a general sense. He talks about you can't be pro-life unless you're pro-adoption, recently speaking. Your overall thoughts on the Vice President's speech and his appearance there in D.C., as Trump will be appearing later today?
Well, Vice President Pence is exactly right. We believe in the sanctity of every single human life. We now have a conservative majority on the court that is allowing the people to determine these important decisions at the state level, as should have always been the case. We have 50 years, almost 50 years, that we've been set back because of the atrocity of Roe. So his comments, I think, are well received. I think the majority of the American people understand that, and we need to protect innocent life. It is a determining factor on what kind of country you're going to be. The country that protects and preserves innocent human life. It's the most basic function of government. So we're excited to advance public policy that secures that ideal once again. And I'm grateful that he's bringing it up, and it ought to be in all of our conversations and speeches.
That is U.S. Congressman from Louisiana, Mike Johnson. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate that.
Thank you.